You might work very, very hard at something and still never be great at it. Do I think that this is true? Yes. Do I like it? No. There's absolutely no guarantee that anything you do will ever sell. I don't think that anybody owes you that. I want to push back a little harder on people who think this. If you're not a reader, you'll be a bad writer. What do you want people to read? I think that's important to remember about the industry. It's all about money. There's so many different ways to give this advice that aren't this. The people who are benefiting from the industry are most likely not going to publicly say that much about it, because why would they? Do I think literary culture is dying? I don't know, because so many people on the internet are really fucking annoying about books. I think we have found, once again, another example of the evils of the publishing industry and the evils of capitalism. You literally start to turn the characters, the writer, into a caricature that white people would absolutely love to buy. Who is ready to get canceled? You guys really loved my last controversial writing opinions video, so we're back with a part 2. I wanted your meanest, most inconsiderate opinions. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted. Let's dive right in with the first opinion, which is that you may never improve at writing, even if you commit to it. But you still have to try. There are no hacks, no tips, and certainly no tricks that'll help you write the book faster or better. You just have to commit to sucking and you'll get better, or maybe you won't. Either way, you won't know if you don't try. At first, when I read this opinion, I was like, oh, this is not that controversial. You know, there's nothing somebody else can tell you to do that will get you to improve. You have to put in that, effort, whatever that looks like on your end. And then I got to the part where they say, you have to commit to sucking and you'll get better, or maybe you won't. And I was like, this is such an interesting take, that you might work very, very hard at something and still never be great at it. Honestly, I feel like I'm inclined to agree. And I would never wish that on somebody. I think if someone is really passionate about their craft and they want to get better, I would really hope that in their eyes, they do feel like they've made an improvement. But I do think that there are some instances where no matter how hard you try, you just might not ever get to the level where you want to be. And a lot of that can be sort of like insecurity, internal struggle. But some of it, I think, can also be a little bit more objectively true. Like, for example, I'm just trying to think myself. I think that I am good at guitar. I have been playing guitar for pretty much as long as I've been writing. I don't think I will ever be great at guitar. I still try, but I don't think I will ever get to, where my brothers are at with guitar, for example. I don't think I'll ever get to that point, and that's fine. Like, I don't feel a certain way about it. I just know my limitations, and I'm kind of neutral about those limitations. But I think there is something interesting here to say that some people will never improve at writing. Coming from the education lens, I would really hope. But, I don't think that it's impossible. I think there might be some people who do sort of stay in the same position. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Writing a book is not only an art, but a business. Ooh, y'all really trying to kill me with this. I saw this one and I started to feel some type of way, which is how I knew it had to be in the video. I think writers should stop being a little ignorant and following a niche book blindly because they themselves love it. It's just the reality to write for the market and for the masses, not just for yourself if you want to get traditionally published. And they did put the caveat that if you are trying to get published, you need to write for the business side of things in publishing. Do I think that this is true? Yes. Do I like it? No. And do I agree with it? No. In my perfect world, any writer who ever wants to publish a story could write whatever they want and they would get published. But the publishing industry is evil, and so that it doesn't work like that. I do agree on the surface that writing is not only an art, it's also a business. Do I also feel some sort of, way about commodifying art and putting a price on art? Do I think that artists should be paid for their work? Yes. Do I like the system in which we exist that artists get paid for work? No. Do I like capitalism? No. Is there anything I can do about it? I don't think so. I don't know. I think writers should stop being a little ignorant and following a niche book. I kind of get what this person is saying in that, like, you might have your heart broken a little bit more if you are writing a book that isn't marketable, that isn't commercial, and, then it doesn't pan out and that really sucks. But, like, it's almost like this person saying, like, you kind of had that coming. I don't like that perspective. Like, from an artistic point of view, like, I think that writing the little whimsical stories of your heart is where people can really shine. But I also don't wanna diminish the fact that this is not true. I think it sucks, like, quite a bit, but I guess writing is a business. I don't like treating it like a business. I don't personally ever treat my writing like a business, but I also don't have a very strong, interest in being published at the moment. It's not at the center of my life. I don't want to go on book tours and meet people and go on panels and talk about my work. I don't really, and have a movie deal. I don't really have that sort of internal drive anymore the way that, maybe I did when I was like 13. So I understand for some other people, the, business side is more important in their writing journey. I do think for your mental health, though, it is important to focus on the stuff that you write. And I do want to say to this take that you need to write for the market. There's absolutely no guarantee that anything you do will ever sell. So personally, if you want to write something because you know you will enjoy it, but you're not sure if it's marketable, then just write the thing. Because there is no telling that the book that you write for the market is actually going to go anywhere either. And then you're just kind of suffering. So, I mean, it's kind of like a sacrifice on either side. I'm lucky that right now I don't really need to worry about that so much. Authortubers mislead viewers by not showing the hard parts of writing. I have so many thoughts on this. I wouldn't go so far to say that it hurts audiences, but it certainly doesn't help, this person says. My question is, like, what more do you want Authortubers to do? I get where this comes from. I don't disagree where this comes from, and I have always, kind of touted my content as being realistic, kind of like behind the scenes of, the actual struggles you might go through in writing. I know a lot of people really like those videos. But my question is, if you tried filming yourself, you most likely would not film yourself when you're having a hard time. So I think that like maybe this is mean. Maybe I'll get canceled for this one. But my thing is, like, content creators don't necessarily owe you vulnerability. And I think there's a certain sense of media literacy that needs to go into consuming content so that you don't feel like this stranger on the internet is responsible for your, like, mental health or like how you feel about your journey of writing. There needs to be kind of some boundaries in that, because people on the internet don't owe you to also show the hard parts of their life. Like, I'm sorry. Like, maybe this is not a good take, but like on Instagram, everyone's always like, social media is a highlight reel, and it literally is. And just part of it also, like, I'm a normal human being. I have a job, I have a family. My life is not 24/7 content creation. So maybe this is a completely different conversation. Then let me do that caveat. This is a different conversation for people who are like full-time content creators. But I don't think I know like a single authortuber whose job, it may be two, maybe like maybe two people on the entire platform whose entire job is like being a content creator. And maybe that's something different. But for other authortubers like me, when you have a life, you have a similar experience to your viewers, in that you might be working people, you might have your own responsibilities that you need to take care of in more of like a traditional sense, where like maybe you have like a 9 to 5, versus like someone who is like an influencer. I am not remembering to film when I feel like shit or when my process is not going well. And sometimes I don't know how to verbalize that. So I think that there's a lot of pressure on, content creators, especially like an author, to show a part of their process they might not even understand themselves. Like for me, when I'm struggling, sometimes I just don't even know how to parse that. And there have been instances, and you can find the video. I have most of my content is videos where I share my struggle, I would say. You can find videos where I am able to verbalize that, but a lot of the times I can't. The idea that authortubers can be misleading to their viewers because they're not showing the hard parts. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that anybody owes you that. I'm sorry. Maybe that's I don't know. And I also think we forget that video making, authortube, it's also an art form in itself. You know, and I think a lot of viewers, maybe this is also controversial, kind of, and maybe some authortubers also undervalue how much of an art making videos actually is. So maybe somebody just likes making videos of them going to a coffee shop and then writing. You never know how much they actually write. You don't know if they actually wrote that day. There's nice music. Someone pours himself a glass of tea. They talk about how they finished their novel and they're really proud of themselves and that they're working on, 5 poems. Maybe somebody just wants to do that because that's more artistically fulfilling for them as an authortuber. This is somebody's life. You see a part of their life. That's not the whole of their life, and they're not obligated to show you the whole of their life. There are some people like me who don't give a fuck. Like, I'll be like, here's my ugly draft, and I'll post it on the internet. But a lot of people don't do that, and they don't have to do that. So I would love to hear from people more on this sort of authortube issue and what exactly you feel about it in terms of like the lack of transparency. Like, what is the problem that you are experiencing on authortube? Because I'd love to continue this conversation. If you're not a reader, then you'll be a bad writer. My only note that I wrote under this is, why do you think that though? And I want to push back a little harder on people who think this, not because I don't think that it's true. It's just because I feel like people say this and they don't actually have any sort of like reason why they're saying it. It's just like something that you say. Like, why do you think people need to read a lot in order to be a good writer? Why do you think that somebody needs to be a reader, quote unquote, like be a hobbyist reader in order to be a good writer? Why? Like I said, I'm not negating the importance of reading. I think reading, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, critical thinking, I think all of that is so important to being a writer. But I don't think that it helps at all to tell people that you don't read, you're not a good writer. Well, how the fuck do you know? Are you in that person's brain? Do you understand how that person might use reading as a tool? Do you think that they even do? How would you know that? Because you're not in their head. I think that we need to stop being so annoying about it. And in my opinion, a lot of this, you need to be a reader to be a better writer. It comes from this Eurocentric, like North American, this is how you write sort of ethos that was developed in like very white circles. So I don't think that the advice in itself is bad. I think, I learn a lot. I read and I write, whatever. You learn a lot. I think that the advice itself sort of centers this, I don't know, structure of literature around a practice that excluded a lot of different people. So I'm like, if you're not a reader, you'll be a bad writer. What do you want people to read? Is my question. What do you think counts as reading? I think there's so many different ways to give this advice that aren't this. I think there are so many different ways to be a lot more helpful in expressing how reading can impact someone's writing process that isn't this. Like, I don't think that you need to tell somebody that if they don't read, they're not a good writer. Reading has been inaccessible for me for a lot of my life. I was a bigger reader when I was a kid, but pretty much for the bulk of me starting my writing, I wasn't really reading that much. I would maybe read a few books a year. And in this sort of space, that felt like very, very little. And people would be like, you barely read. When I was in university, people would be like, what have you been reading? And I was like, I read one book in the last 8 months, But they'd be like, you're such a good writer. How do you do that? Well, because I focus on my writing. And so some people might actually improve in their own writing by writing more, whereas others might have written less in their lifetime, but because they've been such avid readers, they've picked up on certain things in literature that they really enjoy. They're able to channel that knowledge into their writing. So I don't know. It's not that I disagree with this advice. I'm just sick and tired of talking about it. Okay, like, I don't feel like it's necessary to have some sort of hierarchy of, if a writer is good or not based on what they read. I don't think that we need to be using reading as a sort of way to exclude people from goodness. It's just stupid. Public figures who have built their brand should be given publishing opportunities. So this person says, writers have many skills and people online who have worked hard to build their brand and author persona should be given opportunities like publishing. I think in terms of that Aussie bachelor who got that 2-book deal deserves some credit for the work he's done training to become a rugby player, getting himself on The Bachelor, or starting a book talk. It requires some degree of work and luck to get published. However, the rumor that he hasn't written a full manuscript is a different matter. So what this person is saying is public figures like who have created some sort of audience should be allowed to sort of get these publishing opportunities. It makes sense for them to get these publishing opportunities that may not necessarily be afforded to like everyday people like I don't know, me and you, for example. I think that this is referring to Luke. I forgot his name. Luke something. I don't know. I just watched Chris's video on this. Luke Bateman's book deal. I to be honest, I don't really know a lot about it. I just watched Chris's video on it a few times to try to understand. I think the main critique comes from a lot of marginalized writers who again and again see themselves cast out in this industry, whereas, the straight white man gets, a huge book deal without even having a book, right? Do I think that it is just sort of realistic in the industry that this happens? Yes. Do I think that that sucks? Yes. Do I think that we should not get mad because it is just the norm? No, I think people can be upset about it. I think there have been valid critiques about it. Again, I'm kind of ignorant on this subject, so people might have more to say. Let me know in the comments. I'm a little pessimistic. So when I see something like that happen, I'm like, oh, of course it happens. But also, I'm not like a debut author in this space who is marginalized and who has little, support from a major publisher with their work. So maybe it feels a little bit different. It feels like a bigger slap in the face. I do think, yes, it is realistic that public figures are sort of going to be like handed this, TikTokers and other social media personality, they are going to be handed certain things because that's how you make money. It's like, okay, this person can be a brand, this person is big, they have a following. This is a really surefire way for us to make money. I think that's important to remember about the industry. It's all about money. Of course, some things like this happen. They should be given publishing opportunities. I don't know if they should be given them, like based on the fact that he was on The Bachelor. Like I don't give a fuck. Like I don't think that really matters. But like he's a public figure. He's popular in some sort of way. So it makes sense. And yeah, maybe he should be given credit that he's a book talker. He's didn't write anything though, I don't think. He had like a book pitch. We should be all a little bit more scrutinizing of the publishing industry. But I don't think that the people who should be the most, like the white women who dominate the publishing industry, will be as discerning as they should be of the industry because it benefits them. So the people who are benefiting from the industry are most likely not going to publicly say that much about it because why would they? Literary culture is dying in favor of entertainment and STEAM. So this person, I'm assuming, STEAM is like sex, spice, whatever. Literary culture, i.e. those who read or write for the craft, is now a small subculture. Most writers being noticed these days bear no particular focus on prose, but rather on entertainment, thrill, or STEAM. Yeah, I do think this is true, and I've been like a snob for most of my life. And so I do think that, part of this take might be a little bit snobby. Particularly, though, I wanted to mention that, oh, we're moving away from literature, the culture of literature. And I'm like, well, this culture of literature has been quite exclusive to a lot of people. I think the person here is actually referring more to like the smut that's being published and less about, like more genre fiction that is being published. I think there's a conversation about popular work that's, being touted, everyone loves, this is my favorite book, that's really just like the sexiest, porniest book you can ever like encounter. And that's the marketing tactic now. Like, my book has this much spice. People are putting the emoji or whatever. Oh, how much spice is there? Oh, I need the spice or whatever. I'm very happy that people are having, accessible ways to express their sexuality. And I think that that should be, more common. Do I think that it has kind of taken over the book space in a sense? Yes. I mean, the people want it. Clearly, there's a demand for it. So is that a bad thing? I don't know. Yes, I do think most of the work that you see in commercial spaces is, it's for entertainment and STEAM. But I mean, in a sense, it kind of always has been. But I know that there are lots of genre fiction writers who are incredible, stylists of prose, and, their work should be celebrated too. So I don't really have many thoughts on this. Do I think literary culture is dying? I don't know, because so many people on the internet are really fucking annoying about books. Do I think generally there is, like, you know, a lack of media literacy? A lot of people saying that there's a lack of media literacy. Do I think that that exists? Yes. I think maybe also people are abandoning literary culture because it never included them in the first place, and now they feel seen in another avenue. I don't know. Finally, it's weird to use sexuality as a book marketing strategy. All right, guys. Sometimes it feels a tiny bit weird to advertise a character's sexuality as a book marketing strategy, like almost as a trope, as some queer novels do. Maybe that's just me. I think we have found, once again, another example of the evils of the publishing industry and the evils of capitalism. I think that this is great in terms of more publicly expressing queer identities, especially in a time where queer identities, you know, they've always been, but especially now with, you know, the Trump presidency, when these queer identities are being attacked left, right, and center. I think it's great when those identities are at the center of the marketing. At the same time, yes, it's marketing. How do you feel about somebody? This is a problem I have had with other sorts of diverse literature movements like Own Voices, where you literally start to turn the characters, the writer perhaps, into a caricature that white people would absolutely love to buy. And I think it's the way that books are selling at the moment. I think the publishing industry saw it as a opportunity and they capitalized on it. And I can't even begin to tell you how demeaning it is to be, you know, like a BIPOC writer in this industry and know that when the industry is looking at you, they're like, we want a book about your struggle and your trauma because that's all your life is. And I could say the same thing about, you know, queer identities too. I think that all sort of falls under this umbrella of taking diverse identities and using them as marketing tools. I think that's great in the sense that it links the people of those identities or the people seeking to see that representation up with the work that, you know, does include that representation. But at the same time, evil corporate entities have taken that and turned that into, you know, a cash cow sometimes. What we learned in this episode is that publishing is evil and it sucks. Those are all the hot takes. I tried to get a little more controversial in this one. What do you disagree with? What are more of your opinions? I think it's great to talk a little bit more candidly about the things that piss us off in this, you know, industry, in this art form. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in another video. Bye.